Hello, welcome to the Kidney Kitchen. Today we are going to cook a Mexican chicken stew. Now this is full of some really fresh, satisfying flavours. The colours are beautiful, especially with the pink pickled onions that we're going to make to go with it. And also what's fantastic is that it can be made well in advance and then just reheated for whenever you want to eat it. So to start with, I've put a whole chicken submerged in cold water in a pan. And then what I have to add into it is an onion that I've quartered. I've left the skin on, just take the root off. Then there's a stick of celery, which has been chopped in some quite nice big chunks. And the same with a whole carrot that I've peeled and cut into big chunks. And then here I have the 6 cloves of garlic that I've just bashed with the side of my knife. Finally, I'm going to put in a couple of bay leaves, you can use dried or fresh, and about 10 peppercorns. Now, pop the lid on. I'm going to take it over to the hob, put it on a nice high heat to bring it to the boil. Once it's bubbling away, I'll turn the heat down and leave it simmering, so nice little gentle bubbles for 20 minutes to cook. Now, for the pickled pink onions. What we have here is a finely sliced red onion. I'm just going to pop this into a nice heat-proof bowl because I'm about to pour over some boiling water. What this does is just slightly softens the onion, but it gets rid of the harsher flavours that you would have if you left it just raw. I'm going to swill this for 10 seconds, just let the hot water cover it all, and then drain it in the sink. Turn those onions to the bowl and add in the juice of half an orange and then the juice of a whole lime. This citrus juice will macerate and sort of cure the red onion. We're going to leave it for a few hours, you see. And then a little bit of finely chopped red chilli. I've removed the seeds, which makes it a little bit less fiery. Mix it all together and then cover it and pop it in the fridge for a few hours just to macerate and mellow and turn into a lovely accompaniment. Now my chicken is bubbling away nicely. I'm just going to turn this down to a simmer. So turn the heat nice and low. You want it just to be bubbling gently, and we're going to leave it there for 20 minutes. To make the sauce, I've got some finely sliced onions, finely chopped garlic and chilli, again with the seeds removed unless you like it particularly fiery. I'm going to heat up my frying pan. Quite a nice sort of high heat. Pop in a couple of tablespoons of vegetable oil and let that heat up. Now, once that oil has heated up, I'm going to add my onions. I'm going to cook these onions over quite a high heat for about 2 minutes, stirring them all the time so they don't stick and burn. This is so that they get some good colour on, get nice and golden and evenly coated in the oil. So these onions are getting a nice golden brown colour on them. Once they've been cooking on a high heat for about 2 minutes, I'm just going to turn the temperature down to just sort of a medium heat and let them cook for about another 8 minutes. We want them to get opaque, they sort of go nice and soft, the sweetness comes out, they get a lovely golden brown colour. Don't let them burn, keep an eye on them, but nor do you need to be standing over them, stirring them. So now I'm going to add the chilli and the garlic into the onions, which have been cooking nicely. Going to give that a good stir and continue to cook them for about another 2 minutes. Now, I'm going to take 400 millilitres of the liquid from here. This is now made a lovely chicken stock. And I'm going to use this liquid in the sauce. So we've got 400 millilitres of hot chicken stock, so do be careful with that. And I'm just going to put this to one side, ready to put in the sauce. Pop the lid back on, just while the chicken now can cool in its liquid. Now, the onions, chilli and garlic have been cooking for a couple of minutes. I'm going to add in the tomatoes. Got some tin tomatoes here. And add in my chicken stock, which I obviously took from the poaching liquid. And finally, and this is an optional step, I'm adding just a teaspoon of sugar, which is quite a classic thing to add to a tomato sauce because it just gives, as you'd expect, just a bit of sweetness, and it can really help bring out the flavour of the tomatoes. And leave it to simmer for 20 minutes for those flavours to really intensify and for the sauce to thicken a bit. Here we have the chicken that has finished cooking. It seems like quite a short amount of time, but trust me, it does cook the chicken through. And ideally you want to let it cool completely in its poaching liquid. Here in the kidney kitchen, we don't always have time to do that, so it's still a bit on the warm side, but if it's cool, it makes it a bit easier and you're less likely to splash hot liquid on yourself. I'm going to very carefully, I've got 2 forks, but you could use big serving spoons, move this whole chicken into this dish to let it continue to cool. So give it a little tilt to try and drain out as much of the liquid as possible, and then very carefully lift it into the dish. What you have here is a lovely chicken stock. Obviously before we used 400 millilitres of it to add into our sauce. This will not go to waste. Let it cool, strain it through a sieve. You can then use it for a recipe in the next few days. It will keep in the fridge, or you can freeze it to use for future recipes, or just for a lovely chicken broth soup. Many, many uses, but it's wonderful stuff to have. I'm going to let this whole chicken cool down, and then I'm going to start shredding it to get all of the meat, which will go in with the lovely sauce that we're making. So my chicken has cooled off. I'm just going to move on to a chopping board to give me a little bit more space while I shred it. Now, keep your dish there to put the bits that we're discarding. Now, you can use 2 forks for this. You can also get in with your hands, whatever you find easiest. The idea is that I'm just going to pull this meat off the bone, and we're going to discard the bones, the chicken, any bits of gristle or fat that we find, just so we've got lots of lovely tender chicken meat that I will shred to put into the sauce. So my sauce has had 20 minutes cooking. If it sat for a while afterwards, just bring it back up to a nice hot temperature again. We can season it with a few grinds of black pepper. And that is nice and hot. And it's ready for my shredded chicken. So as you can see, all the chicken has been shredded with forks or fingers, however you prefer to do it. So here's all the chicken going into the pan. I just need to stir all the sauce and chicken together. It doesn't need to be bubbling too ferociously, just coat it all in the sauce and then leave it to cook and really merge all of those delicious flavours, get them right deep into the chicken for about 20 minutes. Turn the heat down. So here we have the finished chicken stew, ready to serve up with some rice. We've got white rice here, but you can of course use brown. Some freshly cooked green beans that have just been boiled for 4 minutes. And finally, some of the pink pickled onions. A dollop of sour cream. and a sprinkling of freshly chopped coriander. I'm going to invite Laura Kite, our dietitian, to come and taste it with me. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. This looks lovely. I love the colours.
Oh, it is. It's a lovely, colourful
Such a great
dish.
idea. Lots of really strong flavours going into it,
Yes.
which should be really good, because sometimes people do get a bit of a strange taste when they've got kidney failure.
Okay.
So having all those strong flavours are really good.
Great.
So let's I want to go for these pink onions.
Yeah, they've got the chili in them, so they've got quite a nice heat in them.
If my eyes start watering.
Yeah, the seeds are out, so they shouldn't be too strong.
Really nice flavour to it. A bit of a kick as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you taste like the orange juice and the lime juice in the onions?
Yeah, it's really nice. So it's got one of our more complicated recipes, I'd say, but perhaps something for a special occasion.
Yeah, I mean, what does make it, I think, really great is that you can make it in advance. So if you did want to serve it for, friends for dinner or a family dinner, you could make it the day before or in the morning. And it does take a lot of the stress out of, if you wanted to entertain. It's all done in advance, and then you just cook your beans and rice when you need them.
Definitely. I think we'd always sort of go with those kind of meals that are really good. So I watched when you were cooking, you made quite a lot of stock, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so normally we advise people to tend to boil their vegetables and get rid of the water, but actually, because you haven't used all the stock in this recipe,
no, very little.
It still comes out as a low potassium meal, which is really good, and a low potassium accompaniment with the beans and the rice as well. So really good for somebody who's on a low potassium diet.
Good.
Which is fab.